Welcome to Scottish Summit 2024. I'm Sabjan Sama. I'm trying to present a topic today, which is low-code deployment approach. So, firstly, I would like to thank the sponsors for the online streaming through Proximo 3 and the digital sponsors Lowcode Rider Consultancy and the Cubex. Without you, it will be difficult to run these kind of events. I would like to say really thank you. Coming to myself, so I'm a solution architect working in a Kainos within the low-code practice, which are really doing good with the Microsoft platform within the low-code. I've been working in Dynamics 365 Power Platform over 15 years now, and it's enthusiastic and exciting every year. I see there's lots been releasing, and I'm a regular community contributor. I'm a public speaker, mentor, and to keep myself healthy, I'll be running. So I'll be a runner. So these are the links for my LinkedIn and my blog. If you want to reach me, this is how. So what I'll do now is I'll be going away from my cam so that I'll get a better broadband. Yeah, thank you. So coming to the topic, the purpose, what are we trying to cover in this session is to explore the Power Platform deployment approaches. And secondly, as low-code is booming and we understand there is a lot of investment Microsoft is doing, we want to know more about the low-code approach, how Power Platform pipelines is trying to meet the expectations from the clients. So coming to the next slide, deployment approaches. So traditionally, we've been using manual approach where anyone who have some experience in Power Platform, Dataverse, and Dynamics 365 are able to export a solution when it is ready to ship and import the solution into the target environment. And this is all done with the UI. So all good days from early days when Microsoft has released online version, which is 2011 version. From then onwards, this is very common practice where any makers can actually access the solution, exporting and importing and try to ship the solution. Yeah. So coming to the second approach, which is widely used from medium to enterprise projects, that's what I would say, and it has been evolving every year. So the main tools what we have been using this kind of approach is Power Platform pipelines, and secondly we are using the low-code box toolbox, XRM toolbox, sorry. So toolbox plugin. So they have several plugins within the XRM toolbox, and we can use this for solution deployment. Power Platform pipelines is a low-code approach where we should be able to deal with medium size of projects, and we can extend the pipelines to deliver the uh, complex projects like enterprise projects. The third approach, which has matured enough, and there are quite a lot of companies who have been successfully delivered, especially from medium to enterprise projects, that is Azure DevOps pipelines. This is where we need a setup of some expertise within the Azure DevOps pipelines, a deployment engineer or deployment manager who are expertise in these pipelines within the DevOps would help to set up the environment and try to do the day-to-day deployments, whether a scheduled one or it's like a daily runs as well. And there's alternatively, we can do PowerShell CLI scripts where we can run with the scripts to do these deployments whenever there is some complex or large components of data sets we have to move across with the solution components, and this really does the job. There are also some external tools like CI/CD tools with GitHub, and also some third-party tools where we can build the tools with the SDK from the Microsoft. We can take and we can build. So these kind of tools were there, being widely used, but again, this is a very niche skill kind where people with the deployment engineering experience will be coming to this approach. So these are the three standard approaches which I can say for Power Platform deployment. Coming to the next slide with the specific to the topic what we are discussing today is a low-code deployment approach. So everyone, whoever is working on the deployment area, they have to plan ahead. So coming to the planning, it is a strategic approach. So we have to think about how we are going to release a solution from one environment to another environment. If it's a small scale, if it's a large scale, we are going to deploy into multiple environments, and this has to be a one-off exercise on a weekly basis, or it is like daily. We are doing like in a few hours, every hourly or few hours base, we are doing some kind of release that's running all the time. So to make it a strategic approach, we have to define a environment strategy. So the environment strategy will explain what are the key decisions. Whoever is a deployment manager, the architect, and a couple of people, they will be looking into this particular environment strategy. They agree by following the ALM best practices and put together. In the next slide, we will be going through that environment strategy. Then automation. So as we see that more and more automation is booming, high boost in the return on investment is happening because of this automation. We want to have some frequent release, less human interaction. We want consistency, and we also want to have a place where we have a disaster recovery. If something goes wrong, we need to restore. So considering all these elements, we have to invest or consider in this particular deployment approach. Wherever possible, can we automate? What are the tools we have to automate? And we want to liaise those automation tools. Like Power Automate is one of them, we quite widely use across, as we've seen, like Power Platform deployment pipelines, Azure DevOps pipelines. So those are all helping tools for us to automate the process. Then the third item, which is quite important, considering the scale of the project. For a small scale, medium scale, we can see that a manual approach shouldn't take that long to do the solution deployment. But when it goes to the medium to the enterprise level projects, the complexity is a bit big. So considering that complexity, we have to think how an approach to start with a small or medium scale would extend to a complex enterprise level project. For that, we have to start with manual or low-code tools, and then we can extend with a professional development. So when I said professional development, is a way how a deployment engineer or manager who have some kind of experience with the programming, that would be like Azure DevOps pipeline, so GitHub actions, YAML files, and kind of like a Power Platform CLI commands, executing that scripts. So all these kind of things is all can be handled with the professional development. And again, I wouldn't be encouraging that as an initial step. The initial step is always good to approach with a low-code tool, which is like a Power Platform pipeline. Start with the low-code approach, then extend that with the professional development. So that is what we're going to see today, how this approach would be used widely across now. Now, coming to the environment strategy. So as I said, like the first is a strategic approach. So when we have a strategic approach, we have to think about what are the best practices of ALM? How can I use that, which is widely used across and being successful in delivering the enterprise projects? Those kind of things we have to consider. So we have to consider the environments list. So the list can be is like a medium project can have dev, build, test, and prod. A commercial project would be expanding these environments from 2, 4, 5 to 10 environments at an average. So an enterprise project will be having a bit more on QA, UAT, then pre-prod environment, then we have a support environment, then we also have a systems integration testing environment. So there are several environments depending on the complexity of the project. We can expand these environments. Then they recently been introduced by Microsoft in the Power Platform is environment groups, where we can segment the security by the groups. So development team can work on the development group of environments like dev, build, any master dev, those kind of things. Then there'll be a test group where who will be working on only testing the environments, and they'll be like UAT, test environment, sit environment. So those kind of things, the test group. And prod group. Prod group is a security roles which allow users to access pre-prod, prod, or IT support, BAU support environment. These are all like sensitive data. So not everyone in dev group or test group are allowed to access those kind of information. So for them, we can assign a security group. So it's more like controlling with a governance in place and letting the users to use the right environment. Then managed environments enablement. So this is where the benefits of auto assigning of the licensing using this new feature of low-code Power Platform pipelines is by default available in the managed environments enablement. And also we have premium connectors where we don't need to keep on chasing for the licenses, where the licenses are available as a part of this setup. So that helps us to connect to multiple connectors, which is available in the Power Platform, and data like Dataverse connector. So there's several connectors which we can make use of these things. So managed environments are special environments where which helps the speed up the development, release, and also in the production you can realize that it is well looked after. It's a managed, so less hassle to the maintenance team or the BAU team. Then comes the deployment train. Yeah. So deployment train explains how the cycle of deployment will happen. So it can be from a development to the build to the test, or it can be in a different way, like it can be dev, build to UAT, or it can be dev build to production. So this all will be explained in the deployment train. And also this deployment train can change by phase. So it's not something it's fixed from the start of the project to the end of the project or a program. If it's a large, it's a program where there's multiple series of projects running parallelly, so we can change this deployment train as per the phases of the project. Then solution segmentation. I wouldn't consider there is only one best practice to follow for the solution segmentation. It all comes with the experience, where we can make it as a single solution, or we can split the solution depending on what are the customizations, where are the development, where are the processes, where is the configuration data. So we can split that solution and we can layer the solution as per the segmentation depending on what are the components going in each of that solution, so that we have that contained within one part of the solution. We don't mix the components in multiple solution if you want to expand. Again, this is all depending on the experience and the complexity of the project. Some small medium projects, they try to tend to use one big solution only if they have like a waterfall kind of approach. If it's an agile where we have daily or quite frequent, we're releasing a solution updates or patches, then we use a concept called patch. So that is also quite possible. Then we take a part of the one of the segmented solution and we try to release. So the segmentation is quite important, and we have to define this in the environment strategy so the program follows that one. Then comes the user onboarding process and licensing assignment. So this process will define how the users can be onboarded to the development environments, test environments, production environments. So depending on the way how they onboard, we can try to make it more simpler, more automated, and more easier, so that the BA team later on as well during the go live, post go live, they can add the users. And to access the accounts with less user control, like this is an area where people will fall apart if they don't plan properly, is the service accounts and service principal accounts. So most of the time I've seen some issues in the projects where a user is trying to run the Power Automate or some kind of process on their own, and once they leave the company or when they move into different group, their account is logged or blocked. That makes the system downtime, which is not a good practice. So it's always good to define which environment, what kind of service account, and where are we saving this particular uh, security keys. Yeah, so whether it's a uh, client ID, client secret, where are we saving? If it's a password for service account, where are we saving? Like Azure Vault is a common place, but we have to make the documentation in here. And also the security matrix, what roles are allowed for each of the environment group and how they can assign to each of the user. As soon as they onboard the process, they should be able to get the licensing assigned, and the security roles also being assigned. Then the last but one is the joiners and leavers. So whenever we user is trying to access an environment, we have to have a smoother process to join, and also when they're leaving, the handover should be quite smooth. So how do they access and how they are removed from the access, this process should be defined in environment strategy. And the last thing is the DLP policies. So data loss prevention policies are one of the key uh, policies where we have to define which users are allowed to access what kind of data and how they can use the data, whether they can read the data or they can are they allowed to export and download the data. So all those policies need to be defined so that by accident or by unintentionally any user are not allowed to go and do any operations which they are not allowed. So that wraps up with the environment strategy. Again, this is very high level. We don't have to use all of them in the environment strategy, or there may be some more things we can add. But this is a good start with the deployment approach. Then coming to the low code approach, what I was discussing earlier is the Power Platform pipelines. So that two ways how we can do release this Power Platform pipeline setup is first thing is the platform host. So this one of the type with the platform host is something where the makers can make use of the tool to run the deployment. The second approach with the custom host is an extension to what the platform host is, where we may involve a bit of custom scripts, and whenever there's a bit of complexity is involved, then we need professional devs to be involved. So for this approach, we use a custom host approach. So these two are the approaches how we can do with the Power Platform pipelines. And this is a low code approach initiation. So whenever we want to do a deployment, I would recommend start with the low code approach where we have less technical depth and makers can run, monitor the deployments. They can look into the standard reporting to observe or monitor, view the audit logs, and also we have a nice Copilot's auto-generated deployment notes, which is a challenge in the Azure DevOps pipelines. From my past experience, we need to buy some third-party tools or add-ons. Now it is available within the Power Platform pipelines. Uh, Second thing is it's a cost effective approach. First thing is it's a freebie. If we have a managed environment setup, Power Platform pipelines come as a part of it. We don't have to have a separate infrastructure setup and stuff. We can make use of the existing offering, but makers are the people who are running the deployment, so it's very cost effective rather than involving professional development at early stages. As the complexity grows, our more involvement is required from the professional development. That is where we can scale the project. Lastly, developers are the people who will be helping. When I say developer, is professional developers who can help to configure the pipelines with the pre, post, delegation, and also how to integrate with the external CI/CD tools. So that explains a bit of a high level in the about the Power Platform pipelines. Now, coming to the prerequisites. So, in order to set up the Power Platform pipelines, we need to define environments. So, one of the key environment is a host. So, host is the environment where we set up the infrastructure of the Power Platform pipeline. So, it's like installing a package and a setup where we can run the pipelines. Second thing is we need to define where the development is going to happen, which is a source or a dev environment. And the packages, once they're ready, we will be able to release them like dev environment. Then the next bit is the target environments. So these environments are the one where the solutions that are built in the source will be imported into them or deployed into the target environment. These can be a test environment or SIT or one of the pre-prod environment or production environment where we would see the other end of the tunnel in the deployment that the package will is imported into. So these are the three different types of environments. We can have only one host environment. It's a tenant wide, yeah, but we can have multiple source environments and multiple target environments. Yeah, so host environment is required to set up the pipelines, and this need to be in a managed environment enabled. So this is what Microsoft recommends, to use a managed environment enablement for the host environment. Development environment is an optional. We don't have to enable the managed environment, but target environments are required to enable the managed environments. So that's how the pipeline works, so that we don't have any downtime with the pipelines. Yeah. So these are the prerequisites. In a nutshell, we need to have the environments. We need to have the installation done in the host environment for the Power Platform pipelines, and we need to make sure we have the managed environments enabled in the target environments, and host is a choice. Okay, so at a high level, how this process works. So to start with, makers will log in into the host environment. They will be doing, they will be looking into the Power Platform pipelines, accessing the pipeline, creating the pipeline, and linking the environments which needs to be considered for this deployment. Uh, so they will be connecting to the developer, test, production in the scenario, and they will also be able to do a bit of connecting to the external CI/CD tools as well, like a pre and post step approvals to authorize like whether the solution can go ahead or not, those kind of things. So makers will be able to access the development environment and run the deployment. So the deployment will shift the packages from dev to test. They can also continue with another stage of the deployment to release the same solution to the production environment. During this process, a platform host, we don't have to worry about the deployment gates, but if we want to use a custom host, then we have to consider approval gates. This is called gated way of release, where we have approval gates for someone to approve the solution to be released or not. In the right side, we have within the screen, which will be going into the interface in a minute, but this is how it looks at the deployment pipeline interface, where we define what is a pipeline, we define where the source is, and we define the target environments, and depending on the stages that will be executed. Okay, so this is how it looks in the process. The process looks. So if I go into the next slide, which is a products or services. So here we have the dev, host, test, and production. So dev is the environment where the development will happen, and it's called source. It's a choice to have a managed. Host is the one where the pipelines are being set up. It's a production environment. It can be managed. Optional is what I put for now because I was able to do, but they recommend to have host as a managed. Then we have a target environments. One of them is a test environment, which can be sandbox or production. Production is preferred, but if it is expensive, you can stick to sandbox. Then we have the prod environment, which is a production. Both of them being a target, it's a managed enabled. So these are the environments. Now what I'll do is I will take through the one of the setup what I have over here, and I will take through the environments. So I have a trial instance and I have set up some of the environments here. So if I can slide with the descending and right. So here we have three environments at the top. So one of them is a dev, then we have a prod and a host. These are the three environments I would like to go through with you. So we do the development in the dev demo. We install the Power Platform pipelines in the host, and we try to release the development solution packages into the target that is a production. So these are the three, and we have dev demo is a sandbox, host as a developer, and a prod as a production. Again, this is my convenience depending on the license in the trial I have. But as for the slide, what I've shown earlier, that is the way how the setup needs to be, where dev can be dev or sandbox, prod needs to be prod, and host also, it's always recommended to have a production, and most of them need to be managed enabled. So if you see here, I've enabled the managed environment into the production environment. Yeah, so that is the setup. If someone wants to know how to do the setup of the Power Platform pipelines, they have to go into the admin.power platform. On the left navigation, we have Dynamics 365 apps. Over here, we can actually go into, maybe if I can, yeah, let me close this, and if I can search on this one, Power Platform pipelines. So if I go into the Power Platform, yeah, so over here, so if you see here, it gives an option for us to install. When I try to install it, it tells me which environment, host, and all the stuff. We can go and continue. So this is how we can install the Power Platform pipelines into the into the host environment. Currently, I already have the host environment set up. That's the reason I don't need to install again. If I go back to the environments, now each environment has a environment ID. Yeah. So these are the ones we need to copy. And once I go into the host environment, which is host. Yeah, so this is the host environment. Within the host environment, I have several model driven apps. So out of them, I would be picking the deployment pipelines configuration. So here is where deployment, yeah. So we have the deployment pipeline configuration. On the left navigation, I can see pipelines dashboard. It explains several analytics information. Then we have environments. This is a place where we have to link the environments. So environment ID, as I mentioned, we need to have the dev environment. We need to have the target environment. As I said, dev is one of the environment which I've used as dev demo. So if I go into this environments and if I go into the development environment, you can see we have environment ID that is being linked into this thing. Yeah. So since I've already created the environment, so same thing with the target, I'll be using the production environment. Uh, as I said, this session is not to go in detail like how to install and how to set up. It's more to understand the practice of how we can approach a deployment and a bit of high-level view on the Power Platform pipelines. So I have the environments, then I have a pipeline to create. So I have created a pipeline where I'm connecting the development environment. So we give a name, we define whether we want to have the auto deployment generation, auto deployment nodes to be generated. We can enable them. We have the link environments. Then we can add a new deployment stage. So deployment stage is a stage which carries from the solution package from development environment into the target environment. So this is the same prod target instance in the environments we have created. So the target environment or here is enabled. So this is a setup to have the deployment stage that is connected to the deployment pipeline. So this is a basic setup we have to start with. Once we have the setup, then we can run the solutions as well. So we can also look into the run history. So I have few of the past execution. One of them failed, few of them have succeeded, and then I can see the solution artifacts. This is the interesting bit where in the past, whenever we export and import the solutions manually, we try to save them in a local laptop or a PC or a server, or someone can go and save in a Teams or Azure DevOps. In Azure DevOps pipeline, so we have these artifacts all automatically saved in the source control. In the same way, the host environment saves these solutions for us on the uh, on the artifact within the host environment. So we already have. So whenever there is a deployment, it gives us the managed and also unmanaged artifacts for us to download, or we can rerun the previous setup as well. So that is to do with the solution artifacts. Then we have security teams. Here is where we can define who belong to the users, makers, and administrators. So just to explain again, when we have this setup in place, we can define who can take several roles, who can be a maker, who can be a user, who can be an administrator. So depending on the user's security roles, we can assign the users into the relevant security teams, and we can make sure that they can do the relevant jobs. Advanced settings is something where we can release the stuff, the solutions across the multiple regions. It's like geo solution deployment. The same tenant, but different countries. We can release different regions. We can release through this cross geo solution deployment. Yeah, so that explains a bit on the deployment pipeline configuration. Now, what I will be doing is like, since we have gone through the setup, I will be going to the development environment, which is over here. So I'll be going to the Maker portal, and within the Maker portal, I'll be going to the dev environment. And before this session, I have created one of the solution which has a demo pipeline solution. Within this, what I've done is I've done a small change within the one of the components, which is a columns. So within these columns, I have actually updated a one of the options set as a neutral. It's very basic, just to test the waters how this deployment works. And this is the target environment. If you see over here, I have the production environment. Within the production environment, on the account form, the column, we can see the options as normal, hot, cold. So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to run the solution, the deployment for that solution, so that it updates the option set from normal to neutral. Yeah. So to do this solution deployment through the Power Platform pipelines, we have to open that relevant solution. On the left navigation, we got pipelines. I can go through this one, or I can go to the list of all the solution and click on the deploy ribbon button. So it takes me to the same place. This is what the screen we have seen earlier in the presentation slide, where we can select the pipeline. Dev to prod is a pipeline where I've connected the development environment and the production environment. And here is where the details of development and the pipeline. So if I go to the overview, the solution version is 1.005. Yeah, so that is what the pipeline solution is currently, and we want to deploy into the target, which is the prod. I can go to the environment from here itself, or I can go and see the run history. So we have all the run history that has been executed, and for any reason, if I think my old solution works fine, I want to roll back or I want to reinstall the previous one, then I can go and select and redeploy as well. Okay, so that's what it is. So now I'm going to run the deployment. So all I'm looking is development. I got a solution, I made a change, and I want to release this into the prod. So once I click, I get a reference panel. Here is where I got a deployment schedule. And the schedule will be in such a way that you can release instantly, or you can release at your own convenient time. So it can goes all the way to the months, like different months, so which is good, handy. Normally it's more weekly or monthly we do. So for now, I would be running this one. Uh, the solution to be deployed from development to the production. So during this process of deployment, what it does is initially it goes and validates whether the source and the target environment, like solution checker, all the stuff, it's going to validate the process. And once the validation is being completed, then it will be asking us, can I deploy this across? So looks like the validation has gone through and it is success. So now it gave me a choice to deploy. So here is where I can go and type some release notes manually as well. So I could say is change to the account rating field. I'm changing from normal to neutral. Okay, so just a bit of information. It's always a good practice to have leave some deployment notes. So I'm going to deploy and I'll hit. So if you can see that it's running at the moment. While this is running, what we can do is we can go into the existing setup, what we already have, and we can go and look into the dashboards. So here is where it explains me with a nice dashboard saying that list of failed ones, list of succeeded one, and the ones I've just started now. So you can see it's running. So it's very live real time of data synchronization. So the deployment as it happens, we can see over here. So the managers or the makers who are working on the Power Platform pipelines UI, they can see in a real time what is happening around across. They don't need to ask someone. And if I go into the run history, I can go and see over here as well. It says deploy. So if I go to one of the previous ones, and if I open the deployment operational details, here is where it explains me that at the starting we'll be having the validation. Once the validation is being, like retrieving the artifact, validating the artifact, then we have the retrieving the artifact and deploying the artifact. So all that information, what is happening beyond the screens, everything is logged over here, so which is good. And then also we have any custom kind of setup we can go into the sim, and also we can see a deployment notes for the previous run what we had. One thing I want to go through in this particular page is, so far we have done says platform host with a custom host where we can introduce, yeah, a custom script, or we can introduce the development, complex development, like every time I'm deploying, I want someone, my colleague or my manager, deployment manager, release manager, someone should approve, then we can enable this step. Yeah, so this is one of the steps. We can also do some custom script to export. Pre-export step means like before we export, we can validate that one. Pre-deployment step as well. Before we deploy, we can get some more approval information as well. So these kind of things we can enable, and also we can get some results depending on the way how it is executed. So if I go a step back and if I go into the pipelines, we can see a bit more information while this is running. So I'm going into the deployment pipeline. Within that pipeline, I have a deployment stage. At the moment, I have only one stage. We can have multiple stages where like I want to release to test. After that, I want to release to the production. So we can have the two stages as well. So here is where we can enable the custom scripts where additional configuration like pre-export, pre-deployment, and also delegation. So where I can ask someone to approve. It's like a business event that is available within the cloud flow, these all items, and we can read the steps in the Power Automate, and we can take necessary actions like sending an approval request and a deployment request kind of thing. And once it is approved, then it continues. So this is all automation, but it is a bit of extension to what we are doing. And we can go through a bit more extension in the blog, which is like extend pipelines. It's called gated extensions availability. All the steps are over here, whatever we discussed so far. This is all can be achieved by using some custom development, some custom scripts, some any complexities involved. The flow tries to execute the Power Automate where we can add some more approvers who can approve and continue the flow. And if it's everything is success, it'll go through this flow. If it doesn't, it fails. And how can we access this triggers is through the Power Automate. So within the Power Automate, if you see Power Platform pipelines, we can see all the triggers when it's a pre-deployment. Then also we have a deployment completion. Upon that, what action you want to do, all the steps are available. So this is all bit of a custom, and as I said, like it's an extension to what standard functionality we have. So that is still ongoing. Now going back to the deployment steps. So if I go back to the, sorry, over the run history, and we should be able to see that it's been succeeded now. So once it is succeeded, if I go into the solution, I should be able to see the deployment nodes, whatever I've typed in, and I can see the operational details, a bit more information, what happened. It's retrieving the artifacts, validating and deploying. And if I go to solution artifact, I should be able to see the one which I've just deployed. So it says 1.006. That's the latest version. It has updated, and also it has given me a managed solution to download and an unmanaged solution to download for me to come back. And here over here I can see the deployment information. It is like succeeded, all the information, pre-deployment steps completed, success, all that helpful information, what a deployment notes we need to have over here we can get. The deployment nodes which we were discussing earlier, that is manually we have to enter, but since we are based in UK, but Microsoft has released this automatically generating this deployment nodes, which is in US region at the moment. Currently it's not yet rolled out, but that is a feature which we'll be looking into, and it saves a lot of time, which is a really a challenge in most of the Azure DevOps pipelines to get a deployment nodes generated. So going back to the make a portal where we have this solution being deployed, so you can see that it's been successfully deployed. So a unmanaged solution is being released to the production, and it is a managed solution and it has published. And if I go to the production environment where we have, and I'm going to refresh. Yeah, I should be able to see the change now. If you see here, earlier it was normal, now we have neutral, hot, cold. So that explains the deployment has successfully ran and gave us the results what we're looking into. So that's how a maker can actually go and uh, into the solution and make the changes and just deploy without any professional development support. And this is what amazing thing we can do with the low code approach. And this is all automated. We got all the information to download, and also we can extend this further with some of the good like low code approach we have, like a Power Automate to extend the approach and stuff. So that explains the Power Platform's pipelines with the dashboard, which gives me all the information. See if you can see the live information now. It's completed, and I've got successful runs 3. Previously, there are 2, and it's been successful. Yeah. So going back to the slide, uh, we have gone through how it works, a deployment of the solution through the Power Platform pipelines. And this is a train, a fancy train with a snake, but that's a theme of this Scottish Summit. So here we have way how the development will be happening and released across through the deployment trainees. We start with the development. We have the host where we have the pipelines. Then we can have a deployment stages to release to QA, UAT, pre-prod, and finally to the production. This all can be done in a stages as a staged approach. And also we can define where can we have the managed environments. So we have several environments that is sandboxed and managed. We can have a dev instances as well. Um, and this is a typical mid-sized to large scale deployment train of projects. So that explains the deployment train. Uh, Now coming to the Power Platform pipelines pros and cons. So one good thing what I would say is it's definitely a low code, quick, make us best tool. They can run the packages from the UI. They don't need professional development support to start with. When they extend, they need a support. There's a dedicated security roles for users with makers admin for deployment, which we have gone through earlier, but again just for the consideration of understanding. So if I go into the host environments, so and we can go into the settings to look into the roles, security roles, then we should be able to see the new roles, which is definitely for the Power Platform that's been set up specifically for the Power Platform roles. So that is one of the key roles which is quite important to have. Yeah, so if I go into the deployment, yeah. So over here, deployment pipeline admin, deployment default, and the user. So basically, it's like a maker, user, and admin. We have all the several roles available. All we have to do is like we have to assign to the users depending on what role they want to be in. So that is to do with the security roles. Then automated release notes. So using Copilot, I couldn't show today because of the regional, but it is available. Manually, we have done. And the staged approach, as I said, like we can do for test, for UAT, and for a prod in a several deployment stages in a sequence. And by doing that, we don't have to wait for each environment to get the latest update. And we can do a maximum of 7 stages in a sequence. Yeah. We can also do parallel deployments when Power Platform pipelines is executing. We can also do another deployment externally with another CI/CD tool or with the Azure DevOps pipelines. It's possible that parallel running is also possible, and it's a freebie we're getting with the managed environment. So why not make use of it? Speed up and just deliver the solution deployments what we want to do. The downside is it doesn't support complex deployments. So we have seen the extensions where we can have a low code customizations kind of development, and we can deploy, but we have to rely on the professional development again. If you want to extend the pipelines, there's a bit of coding is involved, and we can make it available. But again, there's a scope. We can extend this one, and Microsoft is releasing every month kind of updates. So a lot of what I've seen a year ago to what I've seen today is amazing. There's a lot of growth is happening in the low code. Without managed environments, we can't use this one. So it's important that we have managed environments. I understand it is a bit expensive. Managed environments. Why? Because we have all the premium license and stuff, so it is expensive. So I would encourage any medium to enterprise projects is a good start. For a small scale, this is not the best approach to start with because of the budget. Yeah. So that is wrapping up with the last slide. Is low code is the future. So low code tools with automation takes deployment to next level. The benefits what I could see is like low code tools are easy to customize, they're easy to deploy, what we have seen just now, and also it's easy to, and it's very quick to go to the market where we can start building and delivering the solutions. And it's amazing things are happening in the market with these low code tools. We can buy or build the same thing. Whatever we want to do now in Azure DevOps pipeline is an infrastructure setup. It takes a lot of efforts for me. Setting up of this environment is just a couple of hours to get up and running. It's very quick with the Azure DevOps pipelines. I need a special skill with the deployment engineering skills, and it takes time to set up, and it is expensive as well, as I see. So since it is quick, we can generate very quick deployments. It brings a lot of boost high return on investment. Less technical debt. There's a lot of pre-built features Microsoft is adding regularly on this one on the Power Platform, like AI deployment nodes. There are a lot of other features coming in. We can make use of them, and this is all hosted on the cloud. It's something where it's more of like a click and make use as a subscription. We don't need a separate Azure subscription with the source control and managing all the stuff. We don't need. This is all there pre-built for us, and we can just make use of the things. So that explains the topic, the Power Platform deployment approach today. I would like to again thank the sponsors. Without the sponsors, we couldn't do this event. Again, I would like to say thank you to Proximo 3, Lowcode Ra, Rider Consultancy, and Cubex for sponsoring for this event, Scotty Summit 2024. I would like to consider any feedback. As I said, like I've been working in this industry for a while. I love to be participant on these community events, and your feedback will be really helpful. In the meanwhile, welcome to Scottish Summit 2024. Thank you all.